Hey guys, how's it going? This is Mike from M&R Automotive. Today we have a brand new 2025 RAM RHO and we've installed the M&R fog light kit. It offers awesome Amber DRL daytime running light as well as powerful white light. So now I'm going to be assembling the M&R fog light kit. So with the M&R kit you get a passenger and a driver's side bracket. You're going to get 6 lights, 12 bolts, and 12 washers. So I'm going to work on the passenger side first, and the way I know it's passenger side is the fact that there is a curved, this is the curvature of the front bumper on the passenger side, so that's how you could tell if you have a passenger or the driver. We're also going to identify it by putting either a P or a D for you guys to make it a little easier. So I'm going to grab the passenger side bracket. This is going to be the front of the light facing forward. So you're going to align these 2 bolt holes for the light with the M&R tabs on the bracket using the supplied hardware. So I'm going to finger tighten everything first. I'm going to align the lights and then I'm going to tighten it all the way. So each light is going to receive 2 M4 bolts and 2 washers. We're going to loosely install the 3 lights and we're going to aim them before we do the final tie down. So now I'm going to align the lights with how we're going to get them installed, and I'm going to show them how to level them. So once you have them all facing forward and you tie them down, because of the cone design of the light, they're actually going to be facing down a little bit as a default setting. Facing down is not bad because it reduces the glare for oncoming traffic, but if you want them facing forward to get the maximum amount of light, then you actually bend these tabs here. There's relief cuts. You can actually bend them in order to raise the light a little bit. So this creates an angle here, but the result is that the light is going to be parallel with the bracket. So on the lights that are freely accessible, you can actually grab them with your hands and bend this tab. The ones that have metal here, you can actually grab a screwdriver and just pry them up a little bit until you like the angle. So you can pry them away from the bracket, which puts a little stress on that relief cut, and it's going to center the lights. So now you can see the lights are no longer facing down, they're facing more forward. When you're happy with the angle of the lights, you're gonna have to tie down the bolts again. So now that we're happy with the alignment of these fog lights, we're going to do the driver's side. So now I'm doing the same thing on the driver's side. Just to show you guys the original position of the lights, when you're mounted, they're actually facing down, right? So we're going to actually pry them slightly away from the bracket in order to create that bend for this tab. So now you can actually evel them out and have them facing straight. So now that we have the 2 assemblies, let's go ahead and install them on the truck. The first part of the installation is to remove the factory fog light kit so that we can replace it with the M&R one. In order to do that, we have to give ourselves some space. So we turn the wheels into the direction of the vehicle that we're working at. So for example, we're on the passenger side to start the project. We're going to go full right, so that way it gives us plenty of space in order to access the fog light kit from the inside fender. So let's go ahead and remove this plastic cover. In order to do that, we have to remove 3 8mm screws and loosen 2 towards the back. So these 3 have to be removed. The ones inside the fender well just have to be loosened up. When we do that, we grab on the plastic trim piece, lift it up, and get it out the way. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to unclip the factory fog light kit. There's an adapter here. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze it and pull it out the way. So now the factory fog light kit is not connected. Next thing we can do is loosen up a couple of these harness holders. So we're going to use a prying tool and just get these out of the way. There's a couple of them just to free up some space. And there's one right here. Good. So that freed up our assembly. Now we can start removing some bolts. 10mm nut on the bottom that we're going to remove. And then there is a 10mm bolt that we're going to remove from here from the inside corner. This is the bolt. So now there's 2 bolts that I'm going to remove on top of this fixture. I'm going to show you after I remove it what bolts I'm referring to, just because it's hard to get the camera in there. But they're facing down, and that's the ones that are holding this plastic piece to the bumper. And those are 13mm bolts. So this is one, and I'm gonna get the one on the inside, and here's the second bolt. Now we're gonna take out the factory fog light assembly. In order to do that, I'm gonna push down on it, and we just pop it out. So the two screws that I was removing from the top, these are the threads from it. So just to show you, I was on top removing these bolts so that way we can unpin it and remove it. So one thing I want to point out, there's an opening here from the top of the bracket, and there's a pin that holds it straight. So in order to free it, you might have to pull it up in order to get this out. So from all the factory disassembly, we're not going to reuse the fog light module. The bolt and the nut that we removed from the bottom to get this off, we're not going to reuse, so we're going to put this away. So from the factory assembly, the only thing we're going to reuse is the top two bolts. So now let's do the same thing on the driver's side. Remove the factory fog light and install the M&R version. So when I'm installing this underneath the truck, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but I want to show you what we're going to be doing. So there's a bumper going here. We're going to use the factory bolts and reconnect this fog light kit through the bumper opening. So let me jump underneath and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, so now I'm going to install the M&R fog light in place of the factory one. I'm going to use the supplied hardware, and I'm going to go from the top just like the factory one was secured, and I'm going to rethread it through the M&R version. Okay, that's one bolt, and there's one more on the side here. Okay, I'm going to use a 13mm ratchet, a wrench to tighten the bolt. So as far as the clips that we took out from the factory harness, I'm going to go ahead and reclip this black one back into the frame where it was, and then these I'm going to zip tie to the new wiring harness that we're going to provide from M&R. Now we can do the same thing on the driver's side. Okay, so now we're on the driver's side, and I'm going to be installing the M&R fog light kit using the factory hardware. Now I'm going to plug this clip back in, and let me show you how the fog light kit looks from the front. So now we've installed the fog light kit. A couple things I want to point out, that we did stagger the lights to follow the flow of the bumper. The first light on the most inner light is facing forward, but the other two are slightly angled outward to give you a wider coverage of light. So let me show you how I'm going to wire them. So let's go over the wiring. So with the M&R kit, you're going to get a wiring harness in order to bridge your fog light kit and extend it to the auxiliary switches. You're going to get two different grounding straps, and then you're going to get a 2-strand power wire, meaning you're going to have two different power sources, one for the white light, one for the Amber DRL. So on the truck, we're going to use two auxiliary switches to power the fog light kit. So I do want to point out there's a Y intersection of the wiring harness. So the Y intersection should be on the driver's side. We're going to connect it to the driver's side fog. One of the ends is going to connect to a passenger side fog, and the other end of the harness is going to tap into the factory auxiliary switches, which are right here. So let me show you how to crimp it. So let's go over the wiring of the pods. Each pod has 3 wires. It has a blue wire, which is the ground, it has a brown wire, which is the powerful white light, and it has a yellow wire, which is the Amber DRL. I'm going to go ahead and fuse all of them together, all the same colors. I got all 3 yellows, and I'm going to throw a zip tie on them, and that's just to hold the wiring together so it doesn't come apart later on. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the brown cables. I'm going to fuse them all together, and I'll throw a zip tie to hold them together. Okay, and that leaves us with 3 blue wires, which are our grounds. We're going to do the same thing. So the zip tie is a cool trick, so that way it keeps all the wires together when you're crimping them to the harness, and they don't come apart. So now that we have them all paired, let's connect them to the M&R wiring harness. So let's do the ground first. So we have a grounding strap, which is the black wire. So we're going to connect that to the blue wire of the lights. And then I found a bolt here that we can use for the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen it, and I'm going to slide the eyelid of the grounding strap on it and retighten it. So I'm going to remove that bolt, slide the eyelid, and that should be a good ground. So now that the ground is finished, that leaves us with 2 wires. These are 2 power wires. If we give power to the yellow cable, that's going to activate the Amber DRL. If you give power to the brown cable, that's going to be the powerful white light. So on our wiring harness, we have the Y intersection. We're going to pair up, for example, the red wire to the brown. So our red wire is going to provide power to the powerful white light. So I do want to point out that the red and the white is interchangeable, as long as you remember which one you used when you're connecting it to the auxiliary switches. So it's just my personal favorite. I like to put red for the powerful white light, and then the yellow we're going to use with the white cable. That's the Amber DRL. I like to double crimp my connection to make sure they're nice and tight and they don't come free. So one thing I do want to mention after the install, we're going to apply heat to these crimp connectors, because when you do apply heat, they're going to shrivel up and become watertight connections. So now that the driver's side is all connected, we have to stretch the passenger side harness across. I just go by the skid plate, and there's a couple spots that you can use to zip tie it. So I'm going to toss it, and then I'm going to grab it from the other end. Alright, so now we're on the passenger side, and we're going to do the same thing we did on the driver's side. We're going to fuse all the colors together. So let's go ahead, first ones, we'll do the blues, and we'll throw a zip tie on them, so that way they stay still. Now we'll do the same thing with the browns. The zip ties are not 100% necessary, I just like to use them, so that way it holds all the wiring still. And now I'll do the same thing for the Amber DRL, which is the yellow cable. Alright, so let's do the grounding strap first. That's the blue wire. On the passenger side, we're going to use this bolt on the chassis to ground our light. I'm going to remove it, slide it through our eyelid, and install it. Alright, so that takes care of the ground. So now we have the other end from our wiring harness from the driver's side, and we're going to go ahead and crimp the two power sources. So the red wire, that's going to be powerful white light, so we're going to go to brown. And then the white wire, that's going to be our DRL, that's going to be the yellow cable. Okay, so now we can go connect the other end of the harness to the auxiliary switch hookups. So we connected the Y intersection of our light to the driver's side fog light. We connected one of the ends to the passenger side fog light, and that leaves us with the other end that gets connected to the auxiliary switches. So I'm going to actually go up the fender and get the wire in the engine bay, so that way we can connect them to the aux switches, which is next to the battery. There's an opening here, and I'm just feeding the wire up. So when you feed it up, you can pass it to yourself or have somebody help you out. It gets connected to the auxiliary switches, so let me show you exactly where those are. So if you look here, there's a bundle of pink wires on next to the fuse box. So what I want to do, I actually want to free them up. They have electrical tape all over them, and I want to bring up the bundle here so that way we can see what wire is what fuse. Alright, so the hardest part is getting all these wires out of here. They're nicely taped up, so I'm going to cut through some of this electrical tape to free up some of this wire. Well, let me take off the sticker. There's a legend of what wire is what switch. Alright, so now let's go over this bundle of wires. Auxiliary switch number 1, that's a pink wire with dark blue. That's this one. Then we have auxiliary switch 2, which is pink with dark green. Auxiliary 3, that's going to be pink with violet. And auxiliary 4, that's going to be pink and tan. So for this install, we're choosing to use two different auxiliary switches. We're going to use switch number 3, which is pink with violet, and switch number 4, which is pink with tan. So those are the two auxiliary switches which are going to power our two lights. If you wanted to fuse your DRLs to come on with other kits, such as like the light bar or the hood mounts, you can always fuse these Amber DRLs together when connecting them to auxiliary switches. So for switch number 3, that's going to be pink and violet. That's going to be our red wire. And then switch number 4, that's going to be the white wire. That's going to be the DRL. All right, let's take a look. So switch number 3, that's going to be the powerful white light. And switch number 4, that's going to be the amber backglow. Wow, this looks really good and everything's wired properly. We're going to go ahead and apply some heat to the shrink connectors to make them waterproof. Use a couple zip ties to secure all the wiring, and go on an adventure. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys learned something, got all the confidence that you needed in order to install this kit yourself. And please tune in to our other video when we're going to show you exactly how much light this fog light kit produces. Thank you for watching, and I know you guys are going to love the product.